05 was my nickname.
05.
05.
Explain the name.
So those first couple of years, I got promoted in 2000.
Right.
And I was a covering agent representing young filmmakers. But 2005 was the year that a lot of the artists that I was representing, where the business turned over, where there was this incredible just shift of the clients. All of their business just took off at the same time. So 2005 was the year that Tyler Perry's first movie came out. So I'd been representing Tyler since I think 2003 or 4, somewhere around there. We put together Diary of a Mad Black Woman, and then Diary of a Mad Black Woman came out in 2005. Right around the same time, I'd signed a filmmaker named Craig Brewer, who's still a very dear friend of mine.
Hustle and Flow.
And he had a film called Hustle and Flow that went to Sundance that year. And it was then the biggest sale in the history of Sundance at that time.
Right.
And then a few months into that, then I signed the star of the movie, Terrence Howard, who went on to get an Oscar nomination later on in that campaign from that film. And then I had there was this brilliant musician, multi-hyphenate artist named Andre Benjamin.
Oh, that guy?
And Hey Ya.
Hey Ya.
Hey Ya hit. And we put we put together the Outkast movie, Idlewild. That was in 2005. And then there was this iconic figure who I grew up listening to his music and so many other people, this gentleman by the name of Prince.
Heard of him.
And we signed Prince.
Wow.
And there were like 10 things like that happened in this one year. It was an absolute insanity. So that's when that was the year that I went from regular agent to, 7-figure player. This was my 5th year as an agent.
That's when you became Charles King.
And then everything just continued to just really grow from there.
And then 2010, you became partner?
Yeah. 2010, we merged with William Morrison Endeavor. 2008, they asked me to start running the big motion picture meeting that every agent was in. And then 2009, when William Morrison Endeavor officially merged, they then shortly thereafter, they established a partnership group, the first partnership group there. And I was part of that partnership group and became a partner at the firm.
This dude is a fucking G, for real. Like, I just know when we fucking landed, everywhere, if you're black in Hollywood in that era, if you're not fucking with Charles King, you ain't working. That was like the sentiment. That was how it felt. It was like, if we can't get this Charles King cat, we're not working. I remember we left CAA at one point. We ended up WME. You weren't on our team.
Yeah.
And we weren't really happy, but you were so busy. And then we finally got, Charles is like, Charles is on our team. We're like, fuck yeah.
Oh, God.
And then he left. He decided to go change the whole culture even more. Another Why Not Me moment by launching Macro. But as bummed as I was that you weren't going to be on our team, I was super psyched about your mission and what you're trying to do. Tell me about Macro. I don't know if this is rumor or myth. Did you start Macro by self-funding it yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first off, I remember all of our first meetings. I literally remember those first meetings with you and John Legend, Ty. We were sitting outside even in the atrium one time. I remember there was a young trainee who was also trying to sign you guys. And I remember all those conversations we had, and I look at everything that you were laying out, your vision for the business you guys were going to build. You guys have done that and then some. It's just been beautiful to watch, and also what great people the three of you guys are too, and still how close all of you are. I think it's like a testament to just who all of you are. I just think it's awesome. And I think it's great what you're doing the podcast.
I appreciate that, Charles.
Yeah.
And
to answer your question.
Yes.
Yeah. About Macro.
Let's get back into your pockets real quick.
to self-funding. Well, first off, when I moved west and did the whole thing, even in my Howard Law commemorative book, they said, well, what are you going to be doing in 10 years? And then in the book, for me, it says, I'm going to be at the helm of a diversified entertainment and media company. And I always thought that would be starting something, and that was always the vision. Now, the reason why I went past my 10 years at William Morris was I was being groomed by Dave and others for future leadership of the firm. I was empowered. I was running those meetings. I actually had a deal where I was going to be the 21st board member of the firm. Then the merger happened. And then it became clear through that merger and all the disruption that happened around it that it was the reminder as to why I came out in the first place. And I really decided then that I wanted to make my move to launch and build from a place of strength. And so I would say maybe perhaps I over-prepared because I spent a lot of time building key relationships outside of entertainment because I knew in order to do what we're doing now, I needed to have relationships on Wall Street. I needed to have understanding of what happens in the M&A space. Who are the lawyers that do M&A? Who are the lawyers that do corporate M&A? Who are the private equity executives? What is the difference between private equity and venture capital? I had no idea of those things. So I spent a lot of time researching, learning, reading, but also then getting to know key players in all of these sectors, especially technology as well. So from about 2009 to when I actually publicly launched and announced that I was starting Macro, I was building. I was doing two things. So partner, agent by day, building, writing business plan by night. I wrote the business plan for Macro in 2010.
Yeah.
And the complementary investment strategy at the same time as well. So all of these things that we're doing now, I was already putting pen to paper then.
And you kind of alluded to that.
Yes.
So I wasn't caught off guard when you did it because you had mentioned some things to me a couple of times.
Yes.
But when you did it, I was like,
yeah,
here we go.
But yeah, there was a leap of faith in it.
Yeah.
I had the conversations with the leadership of the firm, a year before I actually left the building to say I was going to launch and build a company, focus in this space, and I wanted to make sure I got their blessing. There's no way I would want to, burn a bridge that I had built for 15 years. We all know how important relationships are in this industry. Given the scope of the artists that I was representing and the businesses I was involved in, it was important that a transition was handled in the right way. So then at that point, I could take my business plan out, revise it and tweak it, begin to talk to people without concern of it getting back to the leadership group because it had already kind of seeped out a little bit that, well, how do you know all these people? Like I knew more people in the private equity space than anybody except for maybe 3 people in that building. And so it was clear I wasn't going to go raise capital in launching a company without having to have a conversation.
Right.
So once I had it, then I could get to it. So, but the other thing is I couldn't have a full market conversation because if I really went to market, it would have gotten out and then we would have had issues with the clients.
Right.
So I had to ultimately take the leap. I had people that I was talking to quietly. And then once it was publicly announced that I was leaving to launch Macro, that's when I had to then take the full leap. My wife and I, we self-funded the company for the first 6 months. And then it wasn't until, and we had a small team that we'd committed to, 4 of us that launched. That's when we raised our first round of capital. It was about 6 months into it. But this was after, look, we were funding it then, but I'd spent quite a bit of time and resources investing in writing business plans with really smart people, as well as, lining up key strategists and communication specialists who were going to be part of the launch.
I love the fact that I'm going to ask you first about the name Macro, but really quickly, I love the fact that it's a family business.
Yeah.
Stacy's very involved in the business from day one. And it makes me think back to when you were growing up and your dad being an entrepreneur and a businessman and building a business. And now you get to show your children that same kind of work ethic and hustle. How does that feel just being a father to be that kind of role model for your children?
Yeah.
And to see them doing it standing next to their mother.
Yeah. Now, first off, look, my wife and I, she teased me about it, that I was talking about my vision to one day build some company. I think I was talking about it on our second date. She was like, "You're supposed to be like whining and dining me. What are you're talking about this?" But I was literally talking about this for quite some time. And even at the height of my career as an agent and partner, we lived well below our means for a very long time. So that by the time we took the leap of faith, we had invested wisely and we had enough runway such that, God forbid, things didn't go the way we'd hoped it would go, we would at least have had some runway to pivot and maneuver and try to figure out what we're going to do.
Right.
And that allowed us to be able to take the leap and invest in ourselves, to have the runway. Because it's quite a runway as an entrepreneur. It's taking, you want to make sure all your colleagues and your partners that they're all doing well, and that afforded me to not have to live at the same level of income that I did when I was an agent, and invest that into the company and to my colleagues and partners, so that they could also continue while we were building. Yes, it was been very gratifying, beyond gratifying, rewarding for my kids to see us on this journey together. There's a story that I'll tell. It was the day that we publicly announced that I was leaving WME and launching Macro. I was on the phone all day long talking to all these people. I mean, I got home kind of like around 8:30. They were pretty young then. I think they were 8 and 6 at the time. And I remember they were sharing a bedroom. And I went in there and I said, remember that special project that, we were working on and daddy couldn't tell you what it was and mom couldn't tell you because we live in LA. We were all in the same school.
Yeah.
Kids in schools, we couldn't
Absolutely.
actually talk. They just knew I was traveling a lot more because I was doing 2 jobs. I was partner and literally lining up this company at the same time. And I said, here's what it is. I'm leaving the job that I've been at and we're launching our own company and here's what it is. And I literally remember them both sitting up in their beds and their eyes got huge. And then I saw them look at each other and they said, you mean dad's going to be a boss? Oh. And I said, yeah. And they got up out of their beds and started jumping up and down. And I was like, okay.
What a feeling.
I don't know it was incredible. I don't know all I could tell you is this, had things not gone our way, just the feeling in that moment, I can't imagine, I was already gratified. So now when they come to the office, like I just have my youngest son up there and he walks and we have a whole floor at Macro and we're stopped everywhere and he goes to the PGA Awards and he sees the projects that we're involved in, the different tentacles of the company, and they've seen this from ground floor up. It's beyond rewarding. They know that anything in life that they put their minds to and think about they want to accomplish, that is possible. And one of the main reasons why, yes, I wanted to build something that would be transformative for my family, but you know me, Mike, the biggest thing was I wanted to show that there was something transformative that we could do in our industry, for our culture, for kids growing up all around that might not have access, who don't come from this space. And honestly, for people in our industry, the number of people that I represented who were so empowered that didn't even realize their power. So for my kids to see it, for the others to see it, we wanted to be a part of helping to move the industry and the culture.